Professor Dave again. Let's talk about William Taft.
He knows a lot about all kinds of stuff. Professor Dave explains.
William Howard Taft was Theodore Roosevelt's hand-picked successor, the only person ever to be both president and Supreme Court justice. He is famously known for being the most overweight president in American history, coming in at over 350 pounds. His girth was so gargantuan, it was alleged that he once got stuck in a White House bathtub and had to have his body lubricated until he could be slid out of the tub. This may or may not be a true story, but shortly after entering the White House, he did request a newer, larger bathtub that could more easily accommodate his body. 2 years after leaving the White House, while bathing at the Hotel Cape May in New Jersey, he displaced so much water, the overflow began flooding the bathroom floor and trickling onto the heads of guests in the dining room below. The next morning, a wistful Taft gazed out at the Atlantic Ocean and said, "I'll get a piece of that fenced in someday, and then when I venture in, there won't be any overflow." Taft started as a lawyer and was appointed a judge while still in his 20s, rising quickly to a judgeship on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. In 1901, President William McKinley made Taft the civilian governor of the Philippines. In 1904, President Roosevelt, impressed with Taft's handling of the Philippine situation, made him Secretary of War, and he became Roosevelt's confidant and close friend. He actually yearned to be appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but Teddy chose him to be his successor instead. With Roosevelt's help, Taft had little opposition for the Republican nomination for president in 1908 and easily defeated William Jennings Bryan for the presidency that November. As president, Taft focused on East Asia more than European affairs, and also repeatedly intervened in the affairs of Mexico, Nicaragua, and Cuba. His administration was filled with conflict between the conservative wing of the Republican Party, with which Taft often sympathized, and the progressive wing, toward which Roosevelt leaned. Controversies over conservation and antitrust cases filed by the Taft administration drove Taft and Roosevelt further apart. The ballinger-pinchot affair exposed these differences between Taft and his predecessor. Roosevelt had been an ardent conservationist and appointed like-minded people, including Interior Secretary James Garfield and Chief Forester Gifford Pinchot. Although Taft agreed with the need for conservation, he felt it should be accomplished by legislation rather than executive order. He did not retain Garfield as secretary, choosing instead former Seattle Mayor Richard A. Ballinger. Roosevelt was surprised at the replacement, believing that Taft had promised to keep Garfield, and this change was one of the events that caused Roosevelt to realize that Taft would choose different policies. Taft did surpass Roosevelt in one area, busting up monopolies. Under the Sherman Antitrust Act, he continued Roosevelt's efforts to break up business combinations. His administration brought 99 cases in 4 years, 70 of which successfully dissolved trusts. Suits brought against the Standard Oil Company and the American Tobacco Company, initiated under Roosevelt, were decided in favor of the government by the Supreme Court in 1911. In June of that year, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives began hearings into U.S. Steel. This company had expanded under Roosevelt, who supported its acquisition of the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company as a means of preventing the deepening panic of 1907, a decision the former president defended when testifying at the hearings. Taft, as Secretary of War, had praised these acquisitions. Historian Louis L. Gould suggested that Roosevelt was likely deceived into believing that U.S. Steel did not want to purchase the Tennessee Company, but that it was a bargain. For Roosevelt, questioning the matter went to his personal honesty. In October 1911, Taft's Justice Department brought suit against U.S. Steel, demanding that over 100 of its subsidiaries be granted corporate independence, and naming as defendants many prominent business executives and financiers. The pleadings in the case alleged that Roosevelt had fostered a monopoly and had been duped by clever industrialists. Roosevelt was offended by these references to him and his administration, and felt that Taft could not evade responsibility by saying he did not know of them. Roosevelt decided to challenge his one-time friend for the Republican nomination in 1912, but Taft used his control of the party machinery to gain a slim majority of delegates, and Roosevelt bolted the GOP to begin his own Bull Moose Party, which reflected Roosevelt's progressive views. The split left Taft with little chance of re-election, and he was only able to win 2 states, Utah and Vermont, in the election. After leaving office, Taft returned to Yale as a professor. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding appointed Taft as Chief Justice, an office he had wanted for a long time. Chief Justice Taft was a conservative on business issues, but under him, there were advances in individual rights. Taft resigned in February 1930 and died the following month. He was the first president buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Taft is generally listed near the middle in historians' rankings of U.S. presidents, but as a Chief Justice, the job he always wanted, he is considered outstanding. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.